As August comes to an end, so too does the season of yokai and ghosts. The Shinto gods of Japan are slowly wrapping up their yearly business to make their journey to Shimane to decide the fates of us ephemeral creatures. Love will be lost, fortunes will be made, vengeance will be exacted, and the gods will get very, very drunk, leaving us here in the corporeal world to fend for ourselves while the yokai and yurei take over the forests. There's a slightly eerie feeling in the Japanese countryside during the dying of a season, going from blistering summer to chilly autumn breeze that forces you to contend with nature in a way that people in the cities don't get to experience. The forests go into hibernation, the night comes more quickly, and according to legend, yokai thrive in the last days of August, which has become spooky season here in Japan. And my favorite time of year. Welcome, 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 friend. I'm TK, your tour guide to the past, and you are listening to For the Love of History, the podcast where we talk about world history, women's history, and weird history. What I just described to you are the kind of summer days that Hayao Miyazaki had when growing up in the countryside of Japan. And you can see these influences clearly in the work of Studio Ghibli. And today, dear one, you and I will be diving into the myths and legends behind one of my favorite Studio Ghibli films, Princess Mononoke. But before we do that, make sure to leave a like and subscribe if you're watching over on YouTube. Leave me a little comment to tell me what your favorite Studio Ghibli character is, and if we can get this video to like 5,000 views, meaning that you share it with all of your friends, I'll make more yokai videos, okay? Let me know. Let me know if you like this, and if you're listening on your favorite podcast platform, please be ever so kind as to do me a favor and leave a rating or review to let other potential history besties know, hey, we're here, this is a super fun podcast. You should join the History BFF Club. Whatever way you decide to support the podcast, I appreciate it so much, and just thank you for being here. And with that, Ted just arrived here at the History Headquarters desk. So that means it's time to grab a beverage, a little snickety snack, or dig into that craft that's sitting in front of you, hop in the time machine, and let's get to it. Folklore in Japan is unlike any other. Of course, all folklore in every country is unique and interesting, but there's a certain sauce to Japanese folklore that developed through almost 300 years of isolation, the Heian period's obsession with Chinese literature, and the two national religions of Japan, Shinto and Buddhism, with a heavy emphasis on Shintoism. You can find lots of videos on the YouTubes listing out various inspirations or possible yokai counterparts of Hayao Miyazaki's characters. However, few dive into the cultural and historical context. But you know that that's not what we do here at For the Love of History. You know that we love context, and we will always get to the bottom of why something is the way that it is. And this episode in particular is going to be filled with tons of context because I had the privilege of studying Japanese history in university. My specialty was Japanese history, and I have lived in the Japanese countryside for over 9 years, and I speak Japanese, and I also have an insatiable hunger for all things spooky. And this means that I have a very unique set of skills and experience to teach you about yokai. And that knowledge that I have in this noggin, I'm gonna give it to you today. And by the end of this episode, you will be able to go to a party and impress all of the people with your Ghibli knowledge and facts. Some of them fun, some of them unfun. So let's dig into the story. Mononoke Hime, or Princess Mononoke, is the Ghibli movie that is most steeped in yokai legend and Shinto belief. And I just want to say up front, if you haven't seen this movie yet, I am so sorry, but spoiler alerts are coming right now. It's been several decades since the movie came out, so I mean, it's really just on you at this point if you haven't seen it. But I just thought I should warn you anyways. All right, I digress. The entire premise of this movie is based on Shinto beliefs, the foundation of which is the harmony of humans and nature. I go into this idea in more detail in the Shinto Hell episode, but basically humans and nature are supposed to work together in a never-ending cycle of birth and death, bringing balance to the cosmos. And every part of the earth is sacred and is a part of that sacred cycle. In Shintoism, the native religion of Japan, everything on Earth is believed to be imbued with the spirit of a kami, or a god. Not the capital G god of Christianity, Judaism, and Islam, but a primordial spirit that dwells within all things. Some kami are great and powerful, and some are small and gentle, and many lie somewhere in between. In Princess Mononoke, we see many kami, both good and bad, although those monikers can change depending on whose side you're on. From the boar god that we see at the very beginning of the movie, to the wolves and the great deer and the tiny weird-looking tree spirits. These are all kami who dwell in the forest, which is made up of trees that also hold kami within. As you may have seen in several Ghibli films or in pictures of Shinto shrines, or maybe you've been lucky enough to visit Japan yourself and you've seen these ropes, twisted ropes tied around rocks or trees or hanging up over shrines or statues, and wondered, what the heck are these? Why are they around a tree and a rock and a statue? Well, dear one, excellent question. These things are rice grass ropes called shimenawa, and they're used to signify something sacred, as well as indicate the boundaries between a sacred location and the outside world. They can also be used in purification rituals and signify that a great kami dwells within the object. Entire forests can be sacred objects. Yakushima is one of those real-life forests that are sacred. It is an entire primordial forest that is sacred. It is illegal to cut down trees on Yakushima. And, fun side fact, Yakushima is the inspiration for the forest in Princess Mononoke. It has been confirmed. It is a real thing. And that's very, very cool. History husband's been there. I haven't been there yet. I really need to go, but I digress. So it may seem that Shintoism is opposed to humanity, but a give and take is accepted. So of course, humans are going to cut down trees. Of course, humans are going to need to eat animals to survive and take from the land. But there is also a give with that take, and that's how the balance is maintained. In the movie, things get off balance when the humans begin taking too much from the forest and a vengeful spirit fights back. Shintoism may seem super chill from the outside, like it's like love and balance and nature and stuff like that, but it is most certainly not. And canonically, the gods will help you find out if you decide to mess around, which can be done in a few ways, with direct intervention from a kami or from a yokai, of which there are many. Shintoism is very flexible when it comes to adding gods and employing mythical creatures in its canon. There's no one religious text like the Bible or the Quran or the Torah. There are also no heads of churches. There are head priests at different shrines, but it's not an organized religion in the same way that we see with the big three religions. It's more of a personal practice, and it's done differently at each shrine. Due in part to the decentralized and animistic nature of Shintoism, it adopted and adapted these little beasties and ghouls of the unseen world into its pantheon that had been developed through local folklore. And we call these creepy little babies yokai. I have a more in-depth explanation of yokai in last year's August spooky season episode, but essentially, yokai is an umbrella term for what the English-speaking world would call the fae, ghouls, ghosts, and magical beasties. They all fall under the term yokai, and on occasion, certain kami do as well. For example, the beloved and mischievous kitsune is one of these deities that falls in the center of the Venn diagram of yokai and kami. The kitsune is a kami that can bring prosperity, especially in farming, but also just straight up bring misfortune to your entire family and bring about the fall of your whole bloodline if not properly respected. And many of the kami/yokai that fall in this Venn diagram bring the same energy to the function. If you're chill, they're chill. They might help you out, or they might just be ambivalent to your existence. But cross them and they will rain down retribution on your blasphemous little noggin. And in this Ghibli film, retribution's name is Mononoke. Controversial yet brave opinion, Princess Mononoke is a terrible English translation for the title of this movie. The word Mononoke is not just a name. It's not even really the character's name in the movie. Her name is San, but she goes by this moniker for a very specific reason. And to uncover that reason, we need to dive in to a little bit of linguistic history. In Japanese today, the word mono means object or thing other than a human. But 1,300-ish years ago, in the Heian period, mono meant ghost or spirit, things that were not of the human world. Then, between 782 and 806 CE, the imperial family was plagued with illness of all sorts and just a ton of bad fortune. And like humans do, they created a word to describe the situation that was happening. The word mono got mixed with the word tokinoke, and the kanji ke, the last character ke, meaning illness, got smushed together. And thus the idea of mononoke, or vengeful ghost bringing illness or misfortune, was created to explain specifically why the imperial family was having such a bad time. Clearly, it had to be a vengeful ghost that came to curse the emperor and his family. There was literally no other explanation, because at this time, the people of Japan still believed that the emperor was a direct descendant of Amaterasu, the sun goddess, and therefore always had to be in favor. So like their baseline was just boom, in favor. And if something bad happened, vengeful ghost, cursed. Someone was up to some shisty shit and it needed to get taken control of. And quick TK historical unfun fact time. The reason why I said people at that time believed that the emperor was a god is because one of the conditions of surrender that the United States placed on Japan at the end of World War II was for the emperor to declare himself no longer a god. And while it is not a popular belief among people now, some people do still believe that the emperor is a direct descendant of the goddess, but it's not, he's just like a pretty much a normal guy right now. But I digress. I just had to tell you that. Very, very cool. Anyways, this new word, the Mononoke spirit, became a rumor that circulated around the court. But the emperor himself at the time did not subscribe to this idea. However, when Japanese magic, known as Onyodo, gained crazy popularity in the late 800s among the aristocratic people of the imperial court, they became literally obsessed with the idea of Mononoke coming to curse them. And historical fun fact, this is a fun fact, the very first novel in history ever written by Murasaki Shikibu is a story about a Mononoke spirit. Okay, it is a vengeful ghost that comes to exact her vengeance on Genji, who is a hoe, by the way, just a big old slooty McSloot who was just sleeping around. But that's the Heian period for you. Okay, they were just a bunch of good time people. The Heian period is insane. So this idea of Mononoke helped create the very first ghost story, the very first novel in history. Crazy. I Can you tell that this is my special interest? Because it is. Okay, moving on. One of the central tenets of Onmyodo, which has its foundation in Shintoism, is the belief in vengeful ghosts / spirits and the need to appease them, defeat them, or use them for your own purpose. And this is not the last time we'll hear of Onmyodo today, dear one. So for these reasons, in my opinion, the name Mononoke Hime would be more accurately translated to the Princess of Vengeful Spirits, or the Princess of Vengeful Ghosts, or the Princess of the Vengeful Forest. I'll take that one even, okay? That would have been much more accurate. But who am I? I'm just a girl, I guess. But I really do feel that it would do more justice because the people at Studio Ghibli knew what they were doing when they came up with the title, because her sole mission in the movie is to seek revenge on the humans of Irontown for encroaching on the sacred forest where the other commies live. That's her whole shtick. That's her whole thing. San is totally different from every other female lead in the Ghibli lineup. I mean, the whole movie is completely different than any other Ghibli movie that has been made. But San in particular is different. She's a feral creature filled with hate for humanity, but also hate for herself for being part human. Some may not consider San a yokai, and Miyazaki himself has never outright explained his inspiration for almost any of his characters. He is just a tight-lipped man, but there are too many similarities to be a coincidence. In addition to the meaning of her title, there is also a vengeful yokai spirit called Yamahime, or mountain princess, that dwells deep in forests and protects sacred trees from anyone who dares to cut them down. Sound familiar? And her favorite thing to do to tree-cutting offenders is drink their blood and suck out their life force. And just like San, she is not kind. She is not soft. She is not forgiving. And there is no second chances to repent for the sin of cutting down a sacred tree. She will exact her vengeance, even to the detriment of herself. And that's all very San-coded, if I do say so myself. And I do. As we talked about before, the theme of hate and vengeance is central to the film, and almost every kami and yokai we encounter has a heart full of hate for humans. Not for being humans, though, but for having the audacity to take more than they need and consume more than they replenish. Hate is a potent poison that has turned many a human and yokai and kami throughout hundreds of myths and legends into a vessel for destruction. And one thing that I really love about Shinto and yokai mythology is that even the gods are fallible and can succumb to their feelings, like the boar god Nago that we meet at the very beginning of the film. Princess Mononoke has one of the most action-packed beginnings to any Ghibli Studio movie. Ghibli Studio movie. Jeez, there's not a ton of dialogue for like the first 10 minutes, but there is so much said in so few words. Unfortunately, when translated into English, many things are lost. Even though the people who did the translation work for the movie, I'm sure they did their absolute best, but there are just some things that cannot be translated from one language to another in a single word or phrase because of the cultural context of that word. And the existence of Nago is one of those cases. When we first see the great boar god in the English version, the old man at the watch post says, "Look, it isn't human." But in the Japanese version, he says, "Tatarigami da," which holds a completely different meaning. And you know what that means. It's time to strap on your symbolism hard hat, hun, because we are about to go excavating into a very wild history. So, Tatarigami is a type of ghost god that's like the next Pokemon evolution of something called an Onryo, which is a starter level Pokemon of a vengeful ghost. In order to evolve, this Onryo holds on to urami, or a grudge, for so long that they become the god of vengeance. Nago, the great boar god of the forest, becomes a tatarigami after being shot by one of the people living in Irontown, the town that is gobbling up all of the resources of the forest. The unnatural iron that they are killing trees in order to make gets stuck inside his body and is the catalyst that begins his transformation from a regular kami to a tatarigami. The hate he holds for humans manifests into these weird black wormy dealies that are very similar to cursed or poisoned worms used in Onmyodo magic. And the shape that these wormy dealies take is a weird spider-looking thing, and you bet your sweet sugary tookus that there is a yokai that looks like that weird spider creature. It's a demon spider. It's a demon spider called Ushi-Oni that is a huge spider body creature with a cow head. We don't have time to unpack that right now because I have to tell you about the etymology of this word, okay? So the term Ushi-Oni was used as a derogatory term for the powerful families and indigenous tribes that went against the emperor for trying to overtake their land. The emperor was a greedy little gremlin and was trying to snatch up people's land, and they were not having it. So the slang word of Ushi-Oni was used to describe these imperial dissenters. And there are whole ass woodblock print series of actual imperial sympathizers fighting these giant Ushi-Oni that are supposed to represent imperial dissenters. It's like a whole inside artistic art joke that has now gotten like out of hand, and like some people have forgotten about it. It's a whole thing. Do we need to talk about that? We might need to talk about that in TK Unscripted bonus episode over on Patreon, because it like got turned, the Ushi-Oni got turned into like a whole meme. It's a whole thing. It's a whole historical meme. But I need to move on. I feel like the guy with all the red strings behind him saying like, hear me out, and he's like trying to connect the dots. But I am connecting the dots because the symbolism here is insane. All right, let's peel back the layers. First of all, boars are sacred creatures, and in Kyoto there are, and I believe Nara, there are several shrines dedicated to the boar for helping a monk who got his like hamstrings cut and couldn't walk, and they like protected him on his journey, so they became sacred creatures. So that's first layer. Boars, sacred creatures. Second layer of symbolism. The boar is trying to protect the forest from humans who are encroaching on land that does not belong to them, all under the flag of the emperor. The emperor is giving them the go-ahead to get this land and these resources that do not belong to them. They are taking far too much. So this boar that is a sacred protector of the forest becomes so incensed with his hatred of these humans because they're just taking and taking and taking. And then a human shoots him and he turns into a vengeful spirit, and it forces the wounded god to take the form of a yokai whose name was used to diss people fighting against the emperor. And even more. Okay, the worms, right? The poison worms that represent hate, they spread. These worms spread just like hate spreads. The prince, Ashitaka, becomes cursed with the hate from the wormy dealies, symbolizing how easily hate can spread from person to person. And the naysayers will say, it's not that deep. It's not that big of a deal. But it is. It is that deep. They just haven't thought about it enough. Symbolism is the whole point of the yokai tradition. To tell stories and to teach lessons and to instill a healthy fear and appreciation of nature. And Ghibli, being the modern purveyors of the yokai storytelling tradition, steep each one of their movies in this symbolism. And few are as clear as the overarching message of this movie. don't fuck around with nature because you will find out. And nowhere was this made more clear than when the humans cut off the head of the spirit of the forest. In the shadows of camphor trees in Nara, sacred deer come to rest and snack on rice crackers. For over 1,000 years, these messengers to the gods have been protecting the shrines and temples that dot the ancient capital city. The deer is quite possibly one of the most sacred animals in Japan. They not only carry messages from the divine, but one of them was also the familiar of the mother goddess herself, Amaterasu. In Princess Mononoke, the key point of tension surrounds the kami of the forest, known as Shishigami, a very creepy-looking deer god that, despite its dopey appearance, controls life and death. In the film, our antagonist, Lady Eboshi, is determined to kill the kami and bring its head to Emperor Mikado so he can have the power over life and death and become immortal, and so that she can have control over the forest. Lady Eboshi is not doing the emperor's bidding because she's like a nice person, by the way. She too has been affected by the poison of hate and has her own tragic backstory. But instead of turning to nature for comfort and solace like San did, she turned towards industrialization and conquest, starting the poisonous plot of the story. The Shishigami in the film doesn't quite look like any yokai or god that exists in the Shinto pantheon, but is a kind of chimera of legend and culture. Beginning with the basic form, the deer, as I mentioned earlier, it's a sacred animal in Japanese mythology, and there is one in particular that could be the inspiration for the unusual antler pattern. In the Heian period, when Buddhism and Shintoism were trying to figure out how they could coexist in Japan, a kind of strange deer motif was created known as the Kasuga deer mandala or the Suijakuga. Usually, the image was a white deer in the foreground and a tree was growing out of the deer's back. In the tree, there were Shinto gods depicted as their Buddhist counterparts. According to the MOA Museum of Art, the Suijakuga was based on a theory of Buddhist and Shinto unity. You had a Shinto deer carrying a tree with Buddhist gods inside, and they were all getting along fine and having a good time and doing whatever it is deities do in trees. And the tree in particular is very interesting because it's very stylized and it looks kind of weird and very similar to the antlers of the Shishigami in Princess Mononoke, possibly hinting at the unity that the Shishigami brings to the forest. The next distinctive feature of the forest spirit is its creepy little human mask face. It's so weird. It freaked me out per bad when I was a kid. But that nightmare fuel was put there for a specific reason. Japan has a long history of mask making, whether it's oni masks for festivals or masks for historical performances. One of those historical performances being No. No, spelled N-O-H, was a very interesting type of theater. The performers did a sing-song, chanty style to recite their lines, and all of the characters are pretty set. They have emotions that are portrayed through masks, and among these masks, there are very specific archetypes with very little deviation. The colors, eye shape, and mouth tilt and wrinkly features of the mask express very particular things. For example, red masks are almost always a character who is seeking revenge, but a neutral eye tilt suggests wisdom and kindness. So the mask of the Shishigami is portraying both its vengeful side and also its kind and wise side. And you may be thinking, TK, there's all sorts of masks in Japanese history. Why do you think that it's a no mask in particular? Well, dear one, thank you for asking this question because I come with the historical receipts, okay? Hayao Miyazaki has confirmed that the movie is set during something called the Muromachi period from 1333 to 1573. And the art of no was officially formalized during the Muromachi period. Coincidence? Maybe. Yeah, I don't know. Possibly. Possibly it's a coincidence. Hayao Miyazaki is a steel trap when it comes to his inspirations. There are few 100% confirmations for any of the creations that come out of Studio Ghibli, which drives me absolutely insane. But there are too many coincidences, okay? Too many coinkadinks that appear in his characters and also in mythology and legend that you can't help but make connections, all right? And my nosy little academic ass will be making many a hypothesis, okay? Okay. And the hypotheses continue. Aside from the dear god's physical features, some of his more subtle traits also represent Shinto and a little bit of Buddhist ideology. As you may have noticed in the film, with every step the Shishigami takes, plant life immediately springs up and then dies once its sacred foot leaves the ground, symbolizing the kami's control over life and death and its cycle. And huge spoiler alert coming, just so you know, but the climax of the movie happens when Lady Eboshi finally relieves the dear god of his head. And when she does so, black gelatinous goo sprays forth from the neck of this poor creature, and suddenly the entire forest is overcome with chaos. Things start dying. The spirits of the forest start falling from the trees. It is absolute destruction, and the forest that Lady Eboshi and the Emperor were seeking to control is now dying in front of their very eyes. And to me, this symbolizes the idea that you cannot separate nature from nature. Let me explain what I mean. The animals and the creatures in the forest itself cannot sustainably be used in a way that it is not meant to be used. Does that make sense? Lady Eboshi and the Emperor wanted to get rid of the spirit of the forest, the Shishigami, in order to use the forest to make more iron, to use the resources unfettered, because the Shishigami kept thwarting all of their attempts at expansion. So they thought that by killing the Shishigami, they could use the forest as they pleased. But you cannot have the forest without the forest spirit. And even after the head of the Shishigami is restored, the forest is no longer sacred. It's no longer a place where yokai and kami dwell. Yes, the humans got their forest, but they destroyed the thing that makes the forest beautiful and important and good for us, good for human beings. And I know for a fact that I am not reading too much into this, because in several interviews, Hayao Miyazaki had said that Pom Poko, the Tanuki movie, and My Neighbor Totoro were movies to help people see and appreciate the value of nature, and all the audience gleaned from those two movies was cute little creatures in the forest. And he said that he needed to have something to whack people over the head with the idea that we cannot treat nature in the same way that we have been treating it. We cannot just take and take and take without replenishing and giving back, because in the end, nature will be destroyed and so will we. And that is the symbolism behind this yokai, this kami of the forest. The symbolism created by the animators and storytellers of the Ghibli studio is like an onion, With each layer that we pull back, another piece of history or legend or folklore comes popping out. And it's hotly debated among many folklorists and Ghibli lovers if the studio is intentionally drawing from all of these different cultural features, or if the legends are simply in Miyazaki's blood and so ingrained in the studio culture that the characters are made without the conscious decision to add these kami and yokai inspirations. Like I said before, the artists and Miyazaki himself are very tight-lipped about who, what, and where their inspirations come from. They're very forthcoming with the message that they want to tell in their movies, but it's left to us to decide and interpret the symbolism and deeper meaning within these films, which I think is done intentionally. By observing art at a deeper level, we learn things about history and society and culture and folklore that we wouldn't necessarily learn if left to our own devices. I've said it before and I'll say it again, that folklore and legends and stories for children are echoes of the past, and to borrow a phrase from the author John Green, they are part of the eternal game of Marco Polo among authors and artists and human beings of all kind. They are shouts into the future, echoing through time until somebody yells back, "Polo." And yeah, I'll admit, Ghibli films are cute little animations, and the majority of them are for children, but they're also vessels to continue the legacy of yokai and kami storytelling, and they are a continuation of the great literary game of Marco Polo that humanity has been playing for thousands of years. Well, dear one, we've come to our final thought. Gosh, I had so much fun in this episode. It's so much fun diving into the symbolism and the stories behind these movies that I have loved since I was 3 years old. The first time I watched a Ghibli film, I was 3, maybe 4, but no older than that. And these are the kind of films that you watch at different stages of your life and you get different things out of them. So your homework, dear one, is to go watch a Ghibli movie. That is your homework from me, dear one, okay? Is to go watch a Ghibli film, and a Ghibli film that you have not watched before. Do that, all right? Today's final thought is just to say thank you for joining me on this yokai journey. I love spooky season so much. It's my absolute favorite, and I love doing a yokai episode each year. So please let me know if you enjoy them as well, these different yokai related videos, and please do let me know if you would like a breakdown like this of other Ghibli movies. I'll be more than happy to do that. I'm loving this. I love this so much. Okay, so yeah, that's my final thought. Just let me know what you thought of this episode, this type of episode, breaking down these movies. Yeah. And that's all I have. Thank you so much. My camera battery is about to die, so I gotta wrap this up, baby. Please make sure that you like and subscribe if you're watching over on YouTube, and share this video, share this episode with somebody that you think would enjoy For the Love of History. Honestly, truly, word of mouth is one of the best ways that podcasts and YouTube channels get out there. People trust their friends often more than they trust the algorithm. So if you want to help me be able to continue For the Love of History, send it out to your friends. Spam it to your dentist and all of the nursing assistants in the vicinity. Tell it to your mail person, your barista. If you are a barista, tell it to all your customers. That's all I have to say. Thank you so much for joining me for this and every episode. I love you so much. Go outside, touch some grass, do something that makes you happy. Drink some water. I'm about to do that right now. Delicious. Okay. I love you very much, and I will see you next week when we talk about the slightly disgusting history of lipstick. Okay, I'll see you later. Love you. Bye. Mwah! Do you need some TED Talks? TED Talks. You're gonna need some TED Talks. TED Talks. TED Talks. You're gonna need some teddy text. Teddy, teddy, teddy text. Teddy, teddy, teddy text. Teddy text. Teddy text. I feel very, very cool right now. A great day for me, for science. It's just, I'm having so much fun. I'm having a great time. I'm glad that I dyed my hair dark because now I look even more like Princess Mononoke. We're having fun over here. We are having fun. Gosh darn it. My Face ID does not know who I am. My Face ID is having a hard time. Oh, I don't have nails. Hold on. Oh, jeez. Right, here we are. Nails on, right? Yes. We got the Ghibli characters ready to go over here. Little chicken man has fallen over. But, you know, we're fine. Okay. Body, volume, body, volume, body. I'm so hungry. Teddy, are you hungry? Okay, here we go. Okay, we're gonna go.